Say hey everybody, we're alive. We're broadcasting from Toronto, Canada, home of the Blue Jays, Raptors, Maple Leafs, and Canadian psychic Robert Lindsy Milne, and that's me. Welcome to the third edition of My Side of the Crystal Ball, and we've got an enchanting, spellbinding show for you tonight. Starting off with WWRS, what would Robert say, and my co-host on WWRS, Lucia Marie Kloster, all the way from Vermont. She's going to be asking me the question, what's the purpose of our life? And why are we here? I've got 15 minutes to answer that question. Second segment is called The Expert's Chair. And on this edition, my friend Dionne England, I'm here in Toronto. Dionne's going to be talking about her books, her life's work, her teachings, and her inspirational advice. And incidentally, the name of one of her books is called Thrive, in spite of the a-hole at work, and always do your best job. The main event, third segment, my guest tonight, all the way from Melbourne, Australia, downtown at the Spellbox comes Danae Moon Thorp, the Spellbox Witch. And Danae's going to be talking about witchcraft, casting spells, doing magic, and being spiritual. She's also going to talk about what the Spellbox is. We've got a dynamic show. And just before we get started, I've got a request. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. And incidentally, subscriptions are complimentary. That means they're free. So you just press that button, subscribe. We really need your help to support us with subscribing. You just have to say yes, no charge. Now, if you are looking to find me personally, you can find, okay, so, and subscribe to our channel. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and anywhere else where podcasts are shown. You can find me personally, because maybe you're interested in reading or talking to me or something. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, as well as my website, www.robertlindsaymilne.com. And now, without further ado, let's begin WWRS. Lucia, how are you doing? I know with your curious minds, you've got a few things going on there. So what would you like to talk about today? Or what would you like me to talk about today?
Oh, hi, Robert.
Hi.
You know, I just spent a couple days with my mother-in-law, who's 92, and I haven't seen her for a year. So I definitely have seen her age, and she's getting a little weaker. And it had me contemplating, what's the purpose of life? Why are we here? And that's been going through my mind quite a bit. And I was really curious what you thought.
The purpose of life. That's an interesting question. Before I get into that, I just want to tell everybody I am not anti-religious. I have no issue with any religion that is a loving religion and peaceful. I may be saying things that are different than what some religious people think. I'm not putting down their beliefs. In my mind, the purpose of life is to experience. That's it. The purpose of life is to experience all things on all levels. It's impossible for one being to experience all things on all levels in one existence. And one of the reasons it's impossible is there's so many things to experience, but the other reason is you always have to have something to compare it to. So in the overall scheme of things, there is no right and there is no wrong. But in that overall scheme of things, the rule is what we do one way, we must do equally the opposite. Some people call that karma. So the purpose of life is to experience all things on all levels. Now, because it's impossible for one being to experience all things on all levels, we have multiple existences, and some people call that reincarnation. So when our spirit, our soul, our being wants to have an experience, a life experience, it creates, our soul creates a template for our existence. Your template, Lucia, is the only Lucia in the universe. There is no other one just like you. I'm the only Robert just like me. So we're all unique. Yes, we're all connected, but our outside, this tangible part, we're all different. So we have a template for our existence. So we could call it our body or our life. And in that template contains everything that we're capable of experiencing, doing everything. And inside that template, we have free choice and free will to do absolutely anything we want. Because in the overall scheme of things, there is no right, there is no wrong, there's experience, and what you do one way, you must do equally the opposite. So we have free choice and free will to do anything, with the reason that if we punch somebody, we're going to get punched. Now that's in the most simplistic way, but that is very much what it's like. So in that template that contains everything that we're capable of doing, we can choose to accent our strengths, we can choose to excel, or we can do the opposite. We can choose to have an unsuccessful life. We can choose to do all kinds of negative things. And just remember, if we do that, we're going to be doing equally the opposite, whether it happens in this existence or in another. So, for example, we have free choice and free will to do anything. So like for example, you Lucia, if you wanted to play basketball, if you were a basketball fanatic, it's unlikely you could have played basketball in the NBA. Most unlikely, just simply because of one your sex, and the other one is body type and all that kind of stuff. So it's unlikely that you could have played basketball in the NBA, but you could play basketball, and the only limitation you would have is the limitation of your template. So you can learn to play the piano. You couldn't play like Oscar Peterson, most likely, but you can learn to play chopsticks on the piano. And the only thing that'll hold you back is the structure of your template. But by all means, you can do it. So that's the purpose of life, is to experience everything we can. But here's the thing about that. Just being alive, we're experiencing everything. Now, we can choose consciously to focus on something we want to do, or we can just take each second as it comes and reacts as it happens in the moment. And it doesn't matter, because in the overall, what we do one way, we will do equally the opposite. What does that sound like?
Well, I can't stop thinking about that. I play some mean chopsticks.
Oh, do you? Oh, right. But but how do you do with the fifth?
Yeah, that's exactly right?
it. So how you doing with that one? Okay. So, but
I get that.
But if you are you can dedicate yourself to playing piano at that level, and you will be able to become as good as you possibly can be with the template that you have. So there's no right or wrong. It's what do you want to experience? So we have free choice and free will to experience anything. So why somebody at 92, recently my father completed his life about a month ago. He was 92. My dad worked full-time right up till March 2020. So on his 91st birthday, he couldn't work anymore because of the pandemic. And when that happened, it just not being able to work really had a big effect on him. And in that year and a half, I just watched him condense and just, go inward until he completed his life. You were saying that your mother-in-law has declined as well. Well, why is that happening? Because it's the experience she's choosing to experience. And if she really wanted to, she could do something about it. And that's the other thing, you can always do something. Now I'm not saying that she should or shouldn't, but her experience is having this type of completion. And you have the same free choice and free will. You can choose to look at her and say, oh, it's terrible that she's going through all these negative things. Or you can go the other way and say, oh, isn't it wonderful she's completing all this type of stuff, because at another time she'll have a much easier completion. So you can choose to say, okay, I am helping this beautiful woman complete an amazing existence, or I am helping this poor sick woman die. Okay, both are the same. It's just how do you want to experience it? And that happens with every single thing that we do 24 hours a day. So in the overall scheme of things, there is no right, there is no wrong, there's experience. And what we do one way, we must do equally the opposite. And all of us great spiritual people that we think we are today have lived vicious, violent, terrible lives. Angels don't come down from the heavens, or great teachers don't come down from the heavens. We fight our way out of hell. And it's fighting out of the negative side that causes us to grow on the positive side. So you don't start off usually on the good side. You usually go through all the negative stuff and you work your way out. But then, in another existence, you'll come down and be the opposite. Did this boggle your mind?
Yeah, this boggled my mind. And it brings me to that question that a lot of people ask is, would you live it again exactly the same? Or would you choose differently?
That's a very interesting concept, because then you could look at it and start talking about multiple realities. But that is a different story. So actually it's not, but it's a bit too complicated just now. So instead of taking it to that, and by the way, we're talking about this lifetime, you can experience anything the way you want. And by the way, what your mother-in-law is doing is completing the inevitable growth cycle. The purpose of the older generation is to teach the younger generation how to experience and live their life. And what's the very last thing the older generation teaches the younger generation? Very last thing.
How to die.
That's exactly correct.
Yeah.
So your mother-in-law is showing you a way to complete her life. You can do it that way, or you can do it another way. But because you've got the opportunity to see it, you can choose that experience or whatever experience.
And that makes a lot of sense, because that's a conversation I've had with my children. I don't think I want to go out that way.
Well, then so, you can do it differently. I see it, instead of going out or dying, I see it as completing an existence,
I like that
rather than something terrible and negative. Now, I am really proud to introduce to you a friend of mine, Dionne England. Dionne is going to be our guest tonight on the expert chair. So that's where she's going to be sitting. Dionne is a published author, public speaker, a business consultant, and she's been successful in the corporate world for many years, even though she's still really young. So I'd like to introduce to you now my friend Dionne England. Dionne, I am really excited about you being here with me now. Welcome.
Thank you, Robert. I'm glad to be here.
You are a published author. What have you published?
Well, so far I've published my first book, which is called Thrive Despite the Assholes at Work.
Really?
Yeah. So it's about teaching people. It says do your best work regardless of your work environment. So, people can get frustrated by some of the folks that they work with. So it really, first of all, it pokes a little bit of fun at some of those frustrations that we have at work. And then it also does give some practical tools around ways that you could work around certain personality types. And most importantly, it talks about self-awareness, and it makes us own some of our stuff, because sometimes we have challenges with other people because of ourselves, and it's more us projecting some of our own insecurities and things like that. So it talks as well about self-awareness and us owning our own stuff.
Does that mean being accountable for our behavior?
Totally, being accountable for our behavior, yes.
Okay.
And before you start looking at other people who are difficult, it's also just wondering and considering how you might have participated. What did you do to contribute to a situation that might be, a little bit stressful or what have you?
What motivated you to go down that road, that path, when you were writing the book, Thrive in spite of the assholes at work?
I think, well, part of it is, I just think that a lot of stresses that we have at work, and work could be stressful. There's tight timelines, all kinds of things like that. But there's a light side to things. So sometimes when you lighten up and you poke fun at things, I think that could release a lot of the stress. And that's just my personality. And that's how I've kind of navigated in terms of finding the humor in some of the situations. So then I just decided that I'll just categorize a couple of typical personality types that you run across in the corporate world and have a little bit of fun with it with people.
Can we talk about some of those types? Can we have a little bit of fun with them too?
For sure. So one of them is, the political animal. So I talk about the political animal who's always playing politics and in the back room, kind of doing all kinds of maneuvers and stuff like that, and is not very upfront about things and transparent. So just talking about a bit of fun, drawing on multiple people. It's not about one individual. I draw characteristics from multiple people with those personalities, and I just poke a little bit of fun at it. But then afterwards, what I also do is I talk about, and here's some practical ways that you can deal with it as an individual so that it doesn't really weigh down on you. And I also give suggestions for managers, because some of these personality types can be disruptive.
So the political animal, how would you recognize that behavior in someone? Well, how would you identify it?
So for a political animal, the way I identify it is, I guess that one of the best ways is that the person's not upfront. And it's very interesting because what I do point out is that somebody who's very effective and really understands relationships and how to build consensus for their ideas and stuff like that, they share a lot of the same traits as a political animal, because that's what political animals do as well. But like I said, the difference is that the political animal is not very transparent. So you can't always trust what they say. They'll do whatever's opportunistic in the moment.
Okay.
And as well, they generally do what's in their own personal best interest, not necessarily what's in the best interest of the team, clients, the company. So that's another big factor about a political animal.
So did you give that label political animal instead of narcissist by any chance?
Well,
Just,
political animal
no.
is just a very common term.
Right.
So
Okay.
I figured that people would kind of tune into, oh, okay, I know what that's about. In the
Okay.
corporate world, at least, I've encountered it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. That's interesting. So who else is in the list now?
Who else is in the list? So we have people who throw other people under the bus. So whenever there's a problem, they're the first people to first remove themselves from the situation
Yep.
and then find a scapegoat to make it's never their responsibility. And there are actually a lot of managers who tend to not a lot, but there are managers who tend to have that trait.
Yeah.
So again, I talk about it. I kind of poke a little bit of fun at people who do that, where, managers who take no responsibility for the outcomes of their team, although that's kind of the whole job of a manager.
That's what they get paid for.
Exactly. And then in terms of throwing people under the bus, just talking about how that undermines the team. It erodes teamwork and loyalty and all of that other stuff. So I talk a bit about that as well.
Okay, so that's the
That's people who throw others under the bus. I call them the throwers.
okay, and then the next character or the next personality.
Well, one of the other personalities, I call them the guardian of the rules. And in particular, when I talk about this person, there's lots of self-awareness for me because the guardian of the rules is very different than my personality. And that actually comes across as well throughout the book, where I say that a lot of people, sometimes we find them challenging because their personality types are just different than ours.
So, guardian of the rules. Does that mean that they're really picky, or that they're judgmental, or that they're controlling, or what does that mean? The guardian of, or are they power play? What?
So I see them as people. I guess a word that would be appropriate would be like people who like a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of rules. And if you're going to do this, you have to do this 24-step sheet. You have to fill this out, then walk down the hall, and then spin around 4 times, and then come back and like that. I mean, I'm making fun of it.
I could see that burning you out.
Right. So, but what I do say in the name of self-awareness is that I often like to simplify things all the time. And sometimes I don't see the bigger picture. So sometimes there is a much bigger picture why certain rules need to be there. And for me, it's just frustrating, right? So me and the guardian of the rules tend to tussle a bit.
Okay. Is there another character or personality or behavior?
But also, so I talk about the CYA artist, which is, again, it's a very common term in the corporate world called cover your ass, CYA. So in these individuals, and typically it's the environment that drives their behavior, where they don't trust the people that they work with. So they're always covering themselves to kind of make sure everybody knows. Like as soon as they get in, if they're in early, they make sure that they send an email so everybody knows that they were in the office at 7:45. If they're late, they're making sure they're sending emails so people know. They're always kind of overcompensating to make sure people know what they're doing, as opposed to the people who are just doing their job kind of thing. So with the CYA folks, they waste a lot of time. And like I said, sometimes it's because they don't trust that they'll be treated fairly. So they're always documenting and making sure that there's evidence of the work that they're doing. So that's one of the other folks who can sometimes be challenging to work with.
How many characters or personalities do you have in your list?
So I have 8 in total.
How many have we covered?
I think we've covered probably about 3.
Can we do them all? I'm finding these fascinating. Unless you're bored and you want to talk about something else, but these are fascinating.
No. So I'll talk about the micromanager.
Okay.
So again, micromanagers drive a lot of people crazy. And what I do talk about as well is often it comes from my experience has been, it comes from all kinds of other stuff. People who are perfectionists and all of this other stuff where they really don't trust people to do their work well. They're constantly following up and going through their work with a fine-tooth comb and following up rather than giving people the empowerment to go, and they're there to help them and to guide them, but not, hovering over them. So like helicopter parents in a different context. So I talk about how damaging that can be. where people sometimes just check out. It's like, okay, well, if you're going to second guess everything I do, then you just tell me what to do and I'll just do it, kind of thing, which is not really what an organization needs on an employee base, or people who are just like, whatever, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. So I talk about the micromanagers. The bully is another one. And it's interesting because as well, I'm fortunate that in the last while, I've been working with some really progressive organizations and great cultures. So sometimes I even think, I wonder if any of this is even relevant. But then I get into a conversation and I hear people telling me these stories and I'm like, are you really serious? So yeah, bullies would be, in terms of the fact that these, like, so when I talk about a bully as an example, that this behavior exists today, it's alive and well in some organizations. You know, people who intimidate people, passive aggressive in terms of putting people down, just very aggressive behavior to kind of minimize somebody to kind of build themselves up. So that's a pretty damaging sort of situation. And it can be hard. Like sometimes it can be done when the person's not aware of the fact that they're doing it. And in particular, similar to the political animal, bullies can sometimes be confused by really effective, most very effective leaders are very strong and they're very demanding and they have high expectations. And I've worked with both. I've worked with bullies and I've worked with very successful leaders. And the difference again is the piece about it being personal, the piece about putting people down. Like strong leaders don't do that, but they are very demanding and they do have high expectations. So I really talk about the difference and how you see the difference between those two types of individuals in the book. But the bully is a very destructive personality type. You have the slacker, who's somebody who's always trying to get out of work. You go to a meeting and then you walk out with more things to do than you walked in with, and they walk out with like an empty sheet of paper sort of thing, right? So I talk about them. And also, I think the final one that we haven't covered are the experts at what won't work. So the folks who, no matter what, especially for new, creative, different, innovative ideas, they're just afraid of things going wrong and being left holding the bag. So they're always like, oh, well, that'll never work. And they have 17 reasons why everything would never work, except what we've always done before. So I talk about them as well.
How did you get all that information about the characters or the characteristics? Did you put them together yourself? Did you do research? How did you do that?
So, well, I put it together myself. Like I've been around the corporate world for a long time, and I've encountered multiple versions of every single type that I just talked about. But in terms of some of the information in terms of effective ways to manage it and so forth, I did a lot of research around things like that so that I could bring some valuable information to people on ways that they can manage those personalities to be more effective without it being this big, drama or anything like that.
Your book Thrive in spite of, would you call this a monumental event in your life?
Well, it's the first book that I published.
Right.
So from that perspective, yes, it's the first, because writing is something that I really love to do. And it's the first time that I actually wrote. It's like having like your firstborn child. So yes. From that perspective, it is. And it kind of opened the door for me to realize that I can write, and I can write the other, other books as well.
Well, the reason I asked that question is because I've always been a fan of yours, not necessarily writing, but I've always had a strong belief in you. And I think that you've always wanted to write a book or write. But one day you said, I am writing a book.
Yes. That was at the beginning of 2019.
At the beginning of 2019. Now you just didn't, write the book on weekends and lunch breaks. What did you do to write the book?
So, well, some of it, yes, was weekends and blocking big chunks of time.
Yeah.
So basically, yes, I wanted to write for a long time, and then I just decided in the beginning of, and what I actually did is I booked a launch date. So I booked the 22nd of November. I just looked at a date that was far enough in the future, but before Christmas, so people wouldn't be distracted with the holidays. And then I just realized, if I want to get through this, like I'm not going to be able to continue doing what I was doing up until then. So then I had to start chunking out big chunks of time to get through the chapters. I got a copy editor to review it for me and provide me with feedback, grammatical stuff and styles and so forth on the book. And then I just kind of gave myself a plan, backing it up from November 22nd to make it happen. So that was my 2019.
So didn't that have something to do with going somewhere and just writing and wearing your fingers down to the bone, writing and typing and stuff? Didn't you do that? Come on, brag. Come on.
No,
it took courage and strength.
Well, yes, I would go away, book a cottage and stuff like that where I had time. Several days where I could just, because for me, writing, I have to really get my head into it and be in it. It can't be something where it's like, oh, I have a free 30 minutes, so let me just go and write. It takes a while to get into the whole zone. And then once you're in the zone, you kind of maximize your time in the zone. So yes, I used to go away and do my writing.
What would you say to somebody when if they would say, I've always wanted to write a book, or I wished I would write a book, or what would you say to that person?
I would say, then write a book. And there's so many resources. So for me, so there's lots of resources. Like YouTube has a ton of stuff. Like some stuff is crap, so you just filter through it. But there's some really, really valuable stuff on there, self-published authors and others who talk about their process. For me, I actually didn't follow their process because I had my own way that I wanted to talk. My things like I have illustrations in my book. And I remember thinking, oh, well, no, I can't do that because you don't put illustrations in grown-up books, and it's kind of like in a business kind of category. But then afterwards I thought, but it's my book. And if I want illustrations, if that's how I see my book, then I'm going to do it. Yeah. So it's a combination of learning from others and taking the things that make sense to us, but being happy to kind of let go of stuff that is like, okay, that doesn't work for me, and figure out your own process as well.
Do you have any plans, say, for another book?
So I do. So in November,
Yeah.
I do. So in November, I launched my second book. This is all part of the At Work series. So this one's Build Trust at Work, where I talk
writing
about
a series of books.
Yes, so it's 4 books in the At Work series.
Okay.
So the second one is about trust, where I poke, again, it's lighthearted, so I poke fun at the existence of trust and also the absence of trust in some organizations and how that plays out. And then I talk a lot about the topic. There's some people who feel like only hard things like numbers and the cost of goods and sales figures, like things that you can really wrap your head around, are things that you should measure. And things like trust seem very too vague. But what I show is how trust kind of drives all of that, like where you have lower operating costs when you have a high trust organization and you have stronger client loyalty. And this is coming off of stats. This is just not my opinion. And then I just talk through in the book in terms of how it's played out, how my experience has been working at very high trust organizations and comparing it to some of the other organizations I've worked with. And then finally, really talking to managers about what they can do to foster high trust amongst their team members.
Wow. So how close to that book is that to being done, or you just?
So where I am right now, I've finished the first draft. I've got it edited from a copy editor, and now my process is that I send it out to a handful of people who I trust to give me honest feedback. So there are about 7 people who I've sent it out to, and they have it for the next 3 or 4 weeks to give me some honest feedback on the book. Then some of their feedback I'll incorporate into it. So that's a few more weeks of changes. And then we're going into the whole production cycle in terms of the printing and getting ready for distribution later this year.
So your planned launch date is November?
It's the end of November.
Okay.
Yeah, it's at the end of November is what we're targeting.
That's really exciting. It's been really exciting talking with you. You just beam when you talk about your work. It's wonderful to see. I hope that you can come back over the next while and talk more about your progress, your books, maybe share it more over the next several months. It would be great to hear how things are going for you.
That would be great. Thank you, Robert. Thanks for having me.
And how can people find you if they want to find out about the Assholes at Work? And by the way, I think it's not assholes. I think it's at the a dot,
yeah.
Right, because it brings up a lot of other stuff if you Google that, right?
So you could find it. The books you can find on Amazon and on Audible. And then for me, my website is DionneTheWriter.com, and I'm on Dionne the Writer is on Instagram, and you can also find me on LinkedIn as Dionne England.
Wow, that's great. Wonderful to see you. Thank you for being on, and looking forward for you to coming back.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, I'm here now with Danae Moon Thorp, and Danae is the owner of the Spellbox in Melbourne, Australia. And what is the Spellbox? Well, probably the most popular and known. Well, tell me, you tell me then, Danae, what would you call the Spellbox? Because I've been fascinated by everything about it.
Hi, Robert.
Hi.
Spellbox
Sorry.
is a witchcraft shop.
Oh, witchcraft, really?
Yeah. and we sell, I have designed a range of really beautiful spells based on research and a lot of love. And we have a lot of witches who work there, and all the spells and other little products are put together. And we sell them in the shop, but we also sell books and candles, ritual tools. A lot of them are locally made by artists and practitioners of Magick.
Well, I do have a Spellbox wand that took me a lot of effort to get all the way from Australia. So, you know, and
I'm sure it's brought you a lot of beautiful magic. Wands are wonderful little tools to have.
It certainly is. So, are you a witch?
Oh, absolutely. And I really love that word because it's very, to me, it's a feminist word, I think now it's becoming.
Yes.
And it's about, to me, it expresses your own connection with spirituality and something that doesn't have a doctrine, that is about a natural relationship with nature, other people and yourself. And it's very imaginative and creative, and that's probably what's always drawn me to it.
Can you put spells on people as a witch? Can you do that?
No.
No. Okay.
I wouldn't attempt to put a spell on someone. A spell is the act of magic. And
right. Okay.
You can create magic for someone by wishing them well.
Right.
I mean, that's a beautiful gift of energy, isn't it, to wish someone well?
Yes, it is.
And the best for them. So in a way, that is a spell.
Right.
But I wouldn't actually put a spell onto someone to help them meet someone, or you have to do spells yourself.
But you could do that though, if you wanted to. You could do those things.
Look, I'm superstitious too, and I believe also energy gets transferred, and you absorb people's energy. And we've had, when I've read at Spellbox, I've had clients who've come and said that they feel like they've been cursed, or someone gave them the evil eye.
What did you do? What do you do with that?
Well, it's a complex, question. Sometimes to work it out, but in general, I say that you've got to believe in yourself. And when you believe that someone has actually changed your life or brought negativity into your life, you've got to use all your strength and bravery and love to actually move that from you, and actually to believe in yourself, and to know that you have choices in life. And that you are able to create your life.
It's very obvious that you're a positive, healthy, spiritual person. It's very obvious. The Spellbox I wouldn't be able to feel the energy of the Spellbox all the way home here to Toronto. and it be a negative force. I it wouldn't be part of me. So
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and the spell box does radiate.
It does. And
yes.
I mean, I created it because I believe we're all yearning for magic.
Right.
No one wants to live in a world where you just, whatever you see, that's all it is, or you're just,
right.
Plodding along and waiting for time to roll on and not doing what really stimulates you, what makes you feel real and authentic. And for me, with witchcraft, it's a quest to know yourself and to live a life that is fulfilling. It doesn't mean you won't feel like disappointed or angry sometimes, or have grief, or be hurt, or be sick.
Right.
All of that is a part of life. It's the ups and downs, isn't it? But
Yeah.
to me, with witchcraft, when I'm feeling like that, when I'm feeling down, when I feel like disappointed in someone, I try to go within and to work out what this is meaning, what's the purpose and the meaning of it. And to me, witchcraft brings that meaning into your life. So it helps when you are feeling lost. It brings you back.
Okay. So were you born into a family of witches, or were you the first of the first of the species, as it were?
Look, I was probably the first to say I was a witch,
Yes.
but I think my mum was definitely a witch. She was, my mum's passed on now, but she was a very creative, amazingly charismatic person who just touched everyone that she met with some positivity. She was so interested in human beings. And you could be the local sort of cleaner, or you could be the, Queen of England, and she'd treat you exactly the same. So she, both her and my dad had a lot of theatre and theatrics in them, and they loved people. And they always lifted energy. Of course, when I told her, she knew I was into spirits and ghosts and fairies. As I grew up, they always knew I was a part of that world.
Yes.
But when I started to say I was a witch, she said, "Oh, people won't take you seriously because,
Well, how old were you when you were calling yourself a witch? Because you only look about 40
I was
now.
in my 20s. Now, this is before Harry Potter. But look, I suppose when I started saying to other people, this is what I am and this is what I believe in. But the first book I ever bought myself, I was 13. It was a book I paid for my own money with, and it was a little spell book. And I bought it in a place that sells newspapers and that sort of thing. And the first spell I ever did was a spell to get rid of freckles. And because when you're 13 and you don't want freckles, of course I would love them now. And the spell was very simple and very exciting. It was to get up at sunrise, gather a teaspoon of dew from the grass, mix it with olive oil and put it on your face. So the freckles didn't go, but it was the thrill of the mystery of getting up, gathering the dew, the mixing. I felt very sort of connected to my own secret world. And to me, witchcraft is very much of the imagination to me too, and the way you think, and it enriches life too.
Okay. So how did you explain to your family what you were, so how old were you when you were sensing things, and were you seeing energies and spirits and things like that when you were a kid?
Well, when I was little, definitely. I was always like spirits and ghosts and hearing them at night and being spooked and living through my imagination. And a lot of children do that, but I was just so drawn towards wanting to sort of see beyond what I could see with my eyes. So, I would start getting tarot readings myself, be fascinated with that. And then I thought, maybe I could, buy my own cards. And I'd go to like workshops and through, in my early 20s. But I suppose it just clicked and I thought, no, this is who I am. This is, my own religion. I was brought up Catholic, not strictly. My parents weren't strictly religious, but we were sent to Catholic schools. And I think it was the mysticism of the Catholic Church that always fascinated me, the candles and the stories and the incense. But this came very naturally to me. And as I said, it was before, with Spellbox, it was before Harry Potter and Charmed and all those movies and shows that actually probably inspired, especially a lot of young girls. And I thought, no, this is me. It just felt so real to me too, and fun.
Are you teaching people women how to be witches now, or do you write articles or anything like that?
Well, I've just written a book, and it's called, it's been brought out by Llewellyn Worldwide in America.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's called Becoming the Witch, The Art of Magick. And it's been, it's an accumulation of mythology, symbolism, the roots of witchcraft, and I hope it helps people to understand that this is very real and natural, and where it does come from. It's not, it's about human beings' relationship with the divine and seeking something sacred in their life. So when I started reading a lot of books on spells when I was younger, they would give you a lot of spells to do, and that was all wonderful, but no one ever explained, well, where's this sort of coming from? What's the root of it? And they didn't explain how spells work. And I think once you start to do a spell, it's amazing how it works. It's so simple.
How does it work?
Well, to me, it's a sacred ceremony.
Okay.
And it's all, the language of a spell is symbolism. So you start with a circle. Now, once you deem, if you go into
So when you say a circle, does that mean a group of you together and forming a circle, or do you draw a circle on the ground?
Circles can be created in many ways.
Okay.
When you're doing a spell by yourself,
okay,
you always begin a spell with the symbol of a circle around you.
Okay.
Now, that can be, it has to be imagined in your mind.
Of course.
It can be made with something like salt or flowers or, a piece of string, or it can be just imagined to be there. And you can turn to create a circle, but, circles aren't just one-dimensional. They can be like go down like a well or go up to the sky like a tunnel. And when you're in that space, you deem it to be of a sacred energy. And then into that space, you invite what you consider to be divine and sacred.
Okay.
So just say if you want love in your life, to meet someone special. Now, a lot of people, they worry about that, and a lot of mundane energy is sort of accumulates around that intention, like I'm not good enough, I'll never meet anyone, why me, and I'm lonely. But when you go into the circle and your intention is to meet someone who you love or you want to be with, and you deem it to be, this is a sacred quest. So from then on, the quest to meet someone becomes sacred. And so it's amazing how the worry and confusion and hopelessness falls away. And you think, well, that's such a beautiful thing to want in your life. And so I'm going to, each step of the way, I'm going to make it a sacred force.
So the person that you're doing the spell with or for, are they in front of you physically, or are they at a distance, a long distance away, and participate?
You always do the spell for yourself too.
Oh,
always.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you, it's like anything. We always have to work on our inner world, don't we? All of us.
That's brilliant. Actually, yes, it is. I just did this whole talk about how to be psychic, and one of the things that I talked about in episode 2 is that in order for you to see something in this world or in someone, you have to have a reference point in yourself. Even if you're a channeler, you have to have that reference point to compare it. That's brilliant.
You do. So as above, so below. What you had, the way you think is what creates your world.
Absolutely.
As I said, it's not frilly stuff. It doesn't mean that things won't be hard. We'll all come across hardship.
Absolutely.
Too. But it's bringing the meaning in. We all have to grieve.
Of course.
Too.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. I'm just getting so excited about what I've just realized about how you do what you do and how similar it is to me, only different words.
Yeah, I think that the basis of all spiritual beliefs are basically the same.
Okay.
And it's finding that purpose, isn't it? Because when we feel lost or depressed, it's when we've lost that connection too. And to me, it's seeking within. It still amazes me after all this time, if I feel a bit like, come home for the day, you light a candle, how it just brings that light in.
I have my happy candle here right by my
desk. It's that invitation to, as I suppose it's like a sacred companionship, that it's some divine force is with you through that. And that's what praying's about too, isn't it?
So when your clients come to you for your witchcraftery or craftery, is it a healing session? Is it a spiritual session? Is it a psychological session?
I think it works on all levels in so many ways, but to me it's a magical session. Magic is the art of change,
right?
And an alignment with something of a sacred nature. So when we've done workshops, at the moment we're in lockdown, so there's no workshops happening.
I've been hearing all about your lockdowns. May you not break our record here in Toronto. We still are not out of official lockdown yet since March 2020. So
it's a long time.
It certainly is, but we have most of our parole now. There's just a few more bits left. We'll have our full parole. Well, we're doing fine, but we're also wishing you the best. So when someone comes, one of your clients would come to you for spell work, but that would be different if someone was coming to you to do a reading, or is it one and the same? Yeah,
to me, a reading is a spell.
Oh,
a reading helps someone to think in a different way about their life, and to actually understand maybe the energy behind, what's happening at the moment, or the energy behind their thinking. That it's making people aware, isn't it, of of where they are, and seeing where they are in a spiritual sense too. So often with a client, I'll do the reading and then take them through a spell. So they can repeat the words, can light the candle and explain how you're bringing the light in. So it's not just the act of bringing the element fire. It's actually thinking that's the sun. It's the same energy in myself. When I get hot, when I run, when I sweat, I've got the fire energy. My heart's beating. That's fire energy. So every step of it helps the person to be aware that they're actually they're creating a ceremony, an alliance with a force that is greater and is more knowledgeable and of an essence higher than our mundane thinking. And it's amazing how the energy lifts too.
So when you do a reading and then a spell, do you teach the person how to do that spell over and over and over again, or do you just need like one zap and you're healed, cured, on the right path?
I feel that some things take time. They don't always, but just a spell is often the beginning of a new way of thinking.
Okay.
And we can get stuck in energy, can't we? Energy gets very stagnant within us. And especially, usually that's from old, hard hurt and pain, that we get tainted. And we start to see life through that pain, that old hurt. And when you bring awareness to someone, and then they can start to understand how they're thinking and why, and bringing, therefore, some balance into their life, it's the beginning of change. Look, sometimes things happen, wow, and it's just immediate. But in general with life, it's a long process, isn't it? We're always changing. We're always trying to find deeper and deeper a sense of ourselves and where we belong, and also our purpose. And, there's moments where you're feeling that clarity, and then we go off balance and we need to come back in. Sometimes we want too much too soon.
Sure.
We need to be passive and still.
So the purpose of the spell is to help the person grow and evolve, or change their life in a healthy way or a positive way.
Yeah, change the way they're thinking and the energy.
Right.
And I think when you invite energy in, when you say, guide me, help me, through this, and when you surrender, often we get very fixated on an idea in ourselves that we have to have that happen, or that has to change, or that person needs to change because I've ruined my life or whatever. When I find when you just sit back and try and be in the moment and just ask for that inspiration instead of trying to make it happen, it does come from somewhere. It's like, I think we all have amazing sacred potential, and also around us is sacredness in the trees, in nature, in animals. And it's a matter of tapping into that. We all go off beam. I feel really sometimes, of course, that's being human.
Right.
But you can't stay there too long, because otherwise it becomes very stagnant, doesn't it?
It sure can. It's certainly in my work, I see a lot of people like that. So do the other witches that are at the spell box do similar things like that, or do they just do readings?
With
both?
The readers, look, there are many readers that will do spells too with the clients.
Right in the spell box? Right at the spell box? Okay.
Yeah. At the spell box when we're open.
Okay.
Yes. Because we're closed, it's hard. Yeah, and we've had before the lockdowns started, we'd have regular full moon, new moon rituals there.
At night, during the day, how?
At night.
At night
after.
Right.
Yeah, and they are so beautiful, because it's so such a lovely experience with other people to actually create a circle together and bring some the magic into that circle. And everyone, you go away feeling like you're on a cloud 9, you're floating, because it is such a beautiful, it's like meditating with people. You can meditate alone and that's fantastic, but when you do it in a group, it's like the energy really lifts you in a really fantastic way. So spells are a little bit like a meditation too.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, a lot of us, and now I have a little bit of knowledge about Wicca or witchcraft, or I have a little bit of knowledge, but I've always thought of, the circles, a bunch of lovely ladies dancing around a cauldron, chanting and burning candles and things like that. That's what I always thought that witches do, and casting spells and in casting spells, causing people to do well or do poorly, or take control of them, or help them get their control back. That's what I've always seen that witchcraft is about.
Well, there's many. There's truth in all stereotypes and all stories.
Okay.
There's always
Sure.
A degree of truth. Going off to the Sabbath and dancing around a cauldron, sky-clad, probably comes from a lot of the old medieval.
Would you tell everybody out there what sky-clad means?
Well, it's the idea of like being naked under the moon.
Right. Okay,
and a lot of that.
Well, we talked about this before we started. You said it was all right to talk about it.
Yeah. But I think that's a stereotype that derived from the times when witchcraft was associated with meeting the devil at the
absolutely
at the Sabbats,
right,
and flying off in a broom. Now. Right. The whole idea, Gerald Gardner was a witch that sort of revived witchcraft in the 1950s in England. That's where Wicca, he sort of coined that.
Okay.
And made that popular. But his witchcraft was very structured and was about meeting in a coven with a high priest and a high priestess and doing a formula with a spell and sky clad, and therefore creating like raising energy within a group. Now, there's so many other stereotypes connected with the witch as the old hag, isn't it? Who's a bit crazy.
Well, you certainly don't look like one of those.
Yeah, I'm getting there. But there's beauty about the crone or the hag. And this is why, witchcraft is such a beautiful feminist philosophy, is that as life goes on, your power becomes one of a connection within yourself and a knowing and wisdom. And I suppose the two main stereotypes with witches, which is the young enchantress and the old, crone being crazy and living in the woods, they have been demeaned through history. The young enchantress is all based on objectifying a woman sexually. The old hag is that she's worthless now because she's old and going to die soon, and who cares about her? But there's so much power in those, in that aspect of all people, and that all of those stereotypes. And they live within all of us too, no matter what age. And they're a part of us because we all have an inner world that no matter how old we are or age, we live through aspects of life. And so with the stereotypes with witches about, putting spells on people too, there's been a lot of fear. Of course, witchcraft, and it's still outlawed in some parts of Africa and Saudi Arabia. It's outlawed in some parts of Asia. Up until
July 2019, we had the Witchcraft Act in Canada, by the way, and it was a law.
Victoria here, I think it was repealed about in 2004 or something.
We might be we might be the last civilized country that has eliminated those laws.
But it's that fear of the unknown, and also
and maybe the challenge they would perceive as an attack on their God and their beliefs.
Absolutely. Right. And that's where most religions have gone wrong, because they've wanted to control other people's way of relating to the divine. I mean, will accept what everyone believes in. I've never tried to convince anyone of magic, witchcraft, that it exists. I just believe in it myself, and it's brought a lot of fulfillment. But when you get into control, that's into politics, isn't it? And into oppressing.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
So your book, that's going to be coming out when?
It should be out in the US now.
Really?
September.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just arrived at Llewellyn from the printers.
Yes.
And it's called Becoming the Witch, The Art of Magic.
Yes.
And it takes you right into your imagination too.
Yes.
I think it's a very I hope people find it exciting. And whether you've been practicing witchcraft for a long time, I think it's a bit of a new angle of looking at it.
And in your homeland, when are people going to be able to buy it?
It will be arriving in October. Here.
Okay, very shortly.
Yeah, so it's not far off.
If you were going to share something, this market, we're more directed to the North American market, although I want to have Australia as part of my market, and a few other places. But if you were going to say something to people to make them feel good about or safe with witchcraft, what would you say? What would you share?
I believe, witchcraft, it's just your natural relationship with the natural world and with yourself. And there's so much beauty and creativity connected with it. It's also fun and light and joyful. It's nothing heavy about it. Just remember when you used to play when you were a kid, and you would imagine so amazingly that you just lived something, like you could become a gypsy or a superhero. You were that, and that's how it makes you feel. It really lifts you, and it brings that beautiful meaning into all sorts of situations, and hardship especially too. And there's so many wonderful stories connected with mythology and the philosophy of witchcraft that actually it brings some ease and some real positivity into your life.
And I think that's a really great place for us just to stop this conversation for today. You've been magnificent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert. It's really lovely connecting with Canada too.
Wow, everybody, that was just a great show tonight. I hope you had as much fun as I did, hearing about and talking and listening to all the people that were on tonight. I would like to thank Danae from the Spellbox in Melbourne, Australia, for being the main event for this show. I would also like to thank my good friend Dionne England for sitting in the expert's chair. And of course, Lucia Marie Kloster, all the way from Vermont, helping me along with WWRS. So I think we're very close to calling this a wrap, but just one more thing. If you're watching us on YouTube, would you like, comment, or subscribe to our channel? You can find us on Apple, Spotify, and any other place where podcasts are shown. If you would like to find me personally, to get in touch, because I still do readings, and you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, my website, www.robertlindsymilne.com. That's about it. Thanks a lot. And in the meantime, till we meet again, be good, be safe, and above all, just be kind. Good night, everybody.